when Olivia told her husband that she wouldn't give the money she inherited from her grandmother to buy a pricey villa in Spain for her mother-in-law, he lost his temper and destroyed their entire apartment in a blind rage. Then he grabbed his wife by the neck and barked, "Transfer the $2 million to my mom immediately, or I'll throw you out the window." Olivia miraculously managed to escape, and when her husband returned that evening with his mother, they were absolutely horrified by what they saw. But before we begin, please write your favorite dish in the comments. Let us know if you've subscribed to the channel, and hit the like button. Enjoy the story. Olivia always considered herself an ordinary woman with an ordinary life. She worked as a sales manager at a trading company and lived in a 3-bedroom condo in Chicago with her husband, Matthew, and her mother-in-law, Teresa. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary. Until that one Thursday, when everything changed. The phone rang exactly at 10:30 in the morning. Olivia was sorting through emails at her desk when she saw an unfamiliar number. "Hello, good morning. Is this the law offices of Mitchell and Associates? Am I speaking with Olivia Peterson Vance?" Her heart skipped a beat. Estate attorneys usually didn't call with good news. "Yes. Speaking. We need to meet with you regarding the probate of your grandmother, Clara Barnes. When can you come into the office?" Olivia remained silent in confusion for a few seconds. Grandma Clara had passed away 3 months ago. The funeral had been modest. As far as she knew, there was no will. What exactly happened? What inheritance? "We cannot discuss the details over the phone. Please come in this afternoon, if possible. We have documents that concern you personally." Olivia took a half-day off and drove to the attorney's office with a sense of anxiety. In a small, oak-paneled office, she was greeted by an older man with a neatly trimmed beard. "Have a seat, Mrs. Vance. I have some unexpected news for you." He pulled a few documents from a manila folder. "Your grandmother drew up a will a month before she passed. She left you a sum of money." "How much?" Olivia asked cautiously. The attorney adjusted his glasses. $2 million. Olivia felt the world around her freeze. $2 million? From Grandma Clara, who had worked at a manufacturing plant her whole life and lived in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment? "Excuse me, are you sure? Could there be a mistake?" "No mistake. Your grandmother saved diligently for many years and invested her money very wisely. She was a highly prudent woman." The attorney turned the page. "However, there is one condition. According to the will, the funds can only be spent on real estate or education. Any other expenditures are strictly prohibited. If you violate this condition, the funds will automatically be transferred to a designated charity." Olivia nodded, barely processing what was happening. $2 million. That was an absolute fortune. "When will I be able to access the funds?" "After all the paperwork is finalized, in about 2 weeks. But remember the condition. Only real estate or education." Olivia drove home as if in a fog. $2 million. She could buy an amazing penthouse, a lake house, or invest in an Ivy League education. So many possibilities. Matthew met her at the door with his usual indifferent demeanor. "How was work?" "Fine, Matt. I have some news." "What news?" Olivia sat next to her husband on the sofa. "Do you remember Grandma Clara? It turns out she left a will." Matthew looked up from his phone. "And what did she leave? Her tiny apartment?" "Not exactly. She left me some money." "How much?" Olivia hesitated. Something deep inside told her not to reveal the whole truth right away. "A modest inheritance. Enough to upgrade our living situation." Matthew buried his face back in his phone. "Good, so we can get a bigger place or buy a cabin." Olivia nodded, but a feeling of unease wouldn't leave her. Why had she lied to her husband? They were a family. They were supposed to decide everything together. In the kitchen, her mother-in-law was clattering dishes. Teresa, a 58-year-old woman, had been living with them for 4 years after her husband passed away. Domineering and used to giving orders, she considered herself the head of the household. "What are you whispering about?" she asked, appearing in the living room with a cup of tea. "Olivia got an inheritance," Matthew said absent-mindedly. His mother's eyes instantly lit up. "What inheritance? From who?" "From my grandmother." "It's a modest sum," Olivia repeated. What does modest mean? 100,000? 500? Teresa, I haven't really figured it out myself yet. I just got the documents. Her mother-in-law sat in the armchair opposite them. You know, Livy, either way, this is great news. We can finally solve my health issues. The doctor said I need a different climate, somewhere much warmer. Olivia tensed. Here it comes. Teresa, I was thinking of spending the money on a shared home for us. And what's wrong with taking care of an elderly person's health? I'm not a stranger to you. I birthed and raised your husband. Matthew looked up from his phone. Mom is right. Health is the most important thing. Olivia felt a surge of irritation. She was the one who received the inheritance, and they were already deciding how to spend it. I'll think about it, she said shortly, and retreated to the bedroom. The following days passed in a tense atmosphere. Her mother-in-law constantly dropped hints about her health. Matthew supported his mother. Olivia tried to avoid the topic of the inheritance, but she could feel the heavy atmosphere of expectation thickening around her. On Friday evening, she decided to call her friend Katie. She needed to share this with someone and get an outside perspective. Katie, the craziest thing happened. Tell me, I'm listening. Remember my grandmother? She left me an inheritance. $2 million. Can you believe it? Are you serious? 2 million? Absolutely. There's just one condition: I can only spend it on real estate or education. Wow, you're rich now. What does your husband say? That's the thing. I didn't tell him the exact amount. I just said it was a modest inheritance. Why? I don't know. Intuition, I guess. I'm afraid my mother-in-law will immediately demand I spend it on her. Is she already hinting at it? Of course. Talking about her health, needing a warm climate, and Matt supports her. Listen, maybe it's for the best that you didn't tell them. See how they act first. Probably. But I feel awkward. It feels like I'm deceiving my family. Liv, it's your inheritance from your grandmother. You have the right to decide for yourself. You're right. I'll keep thinking. Olivia hung up the phone, completely unaware that the bedroom door was slightly ajar. Standing right behind it was Matthew, who had come home earlier than usual and accidentally overheard the entire conversation. His face was pale with shock. $2 million. And she had told him it was a modest inheritance. She was lying, hiding that kind of money from her husband. Matthew quietly walked into the kitchen, where his mother was washing dishes. Mom, we need to talk, he whispered. About what? Olivia's inheritance. It's not a few thousand. It's $2 million. Teresa dropped a plate. How much? She gripped the edge of the counter. 2 million. And she didn't tell us a thing. Lied right to our faces. That means she doesn't consider us family. She wants to keep it all for herself. Matthew nodded. We have to do something, Mom. That kind of money in one person's hands is dangerous. Of course it's dangerous. People lose their minds over that kind of cash. We need to convince her that the money should serve the whole family. But how? Teresa thought for a moment. You know what, son? I have an idea, but you're going to have to help me. Of course, Mom. What do we do? Tomorrow, I'm going to see an acquaintance who works at an international real estate agency. I'll find out everything about properties in Spain. If the money can only be spent on real estate, then that's exactly what we'll do. Matthew looked at his mother in confusion. What does Spain have to do with this? Because the climate there is wonderful. It's perfect for my health. We'll buy a villa on the coast, and I'll go there to heal. But Olivia won't agree. We'll convince her. You're the husband, the head of the family. Your word should be law. Matthew hesitated. I don't know, Mom. Olivia has a strong personality. She won't just roll over. Then we have to act smarter. We'll show her it's profitable for everyone. Real estate in Europe is an excellent investment. The next day, Teresa did indeed go to the agency. She met with Linda, an old acquaintance who dealt in international real estate. Linda, I need your help. My daughter-in-law came into some money. She wants to buy real estate. Can you recommend something in Spain? What's the budget? Around $2 million. Linda perked up. Oh, for that kind of money, we can find a stunning villa. I have some listings right on the coast. She pulled out a glossy catalog. Look here. A villa in Costa del Sol. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a pool, a garden. Spectacular ocean views. How much is it? 1,98 million dollars. Practically a perfect fit for the budget. Teresa carefully studied the photos. Beautiful, luxurious, prestigious. Can the paperwork be done quickly? If you have the cash, we can close in a month. But we need a 10% deposit. So, about $200,000. Yes, the seller won't hold it without a deposit. Teresa took all the brochures. All right, I'll consult with my family and get back to you. At home, she spread the colorful brochures and photos of the villa across the dining table. When Matthew returned from work, she triumphantly announced, "Son, I found the perfect option." "Which one?" "A villa in Spain. Look how beautiful it is." Matthew flipped through the catalog in awe. "Mom, this is a palace. How much?" "Exactly 2 million. It's as if it were picked specifically for us. Are you sure Olivia will go for this?" "We won't give her a choice. We'll show her it's the best possible investment. European real estate only goes up in value." At that moment, the door opened, and Olivia walked in. She took off her jacket, looking tired, and walked toward the kitchen. "Livy, come here," her mother-in-law called out. "I have a surprise for you." Olivia walked over to the table and saw the brochures. "What is this?" "This is our future," Teresa declared proudly. "I found the ideal way to invest your inheritance." Olivia picked up a photo of the villa. "It's beautiful, but this is in Spain." "Exactly. A wonderful climate, European quality of life, an excellent investment." "Teresa, I was planning to buy something here in Chicago." "Why?" "Look at the numbers. Real estate in Spain appreciates by 15% a year. In 5 years, your 2 million will turn into 4. Olivia froze. How did her mother-in-law know the exact amount? "Excuse me, but how do you know how much money I inherited?" Teresa faltered for a second, but quickly recovered. "Matt told me." "About 2 million, right?" Olivia turned to her husband. "Matt, I told you a different amount." Matthew blushed. "Well, I accidentally overheard your conversation with your friend. You were eavesdropping?" "I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just walking past the room. The door was open." Olivia felt a sting of betrayal, so he was listening in on her private calls and immediately ran to tell his mommy. "Olivia, we're family," Teresa interjected. "Why keep secrets from your loved ones?" "Secrets? I just wanted to figure everything out myself first. And now, you have. And here is a fantastic option, a villa in Spain." Her mother-in-law opened the catalog again. "Look at these terms. You can move right in." Olivia carefully read the description. "Teresa, I need real estate for our family, to live in right here. What's wrong with owning a home in Europe? It's prestigious, it's profitable, but we won't live there permanently." "Why not?" Teresa leaned in closer. "I, for instance, could go there to improve my health. The doctors say a warm climate is absolutely essential for me." There it was. Olivia realized exactly what her mother-in-law was getting at. "So this villa is for your medical treatment." "Not just for my treatment, for the whole family. Matt could work remotely from there. You could too. A new life, new opportunities." Matthew backed her up. "Mom is right. Liv, this is a chance to change our lives for the better." Olivia silently flipped through the pages. $2 million for a villa in Spain so her mother-in-law could treat her ailments. That's what this had been about from the very beginning. "I'll think about it," she said neutrally. "What's there to think about?" Teresa said heatedly. "Properties like this get snatched up fast. Linda says we need to put down a deposit, or they'll sell it to someone else." "What deposit?" "Just $200,000, and we pay the rest later." Olivia put the catalog down. "Teresa, this is a massive decision. You can't just buy real estate in another country without thinking it through." "What is there to think about? The money is there, the villa is perfect, the climate is wonderful. I need time to research this." Her mother-in-law pursed her lips. "Time. And while you're thinking, someone else will buy the villa, and then you'll regret it." Olivia stood up from the table. "Excuse me, but I make the decisions here. It's my inheritance." Teresa and Matthew exchanged a look. In their eyes, Olivia could see resentment and something else. something that made a chill of anxiety run down her spine. "Of course, dear," her mother-in-law said sweetly. "We're just offering advice like family." But the tone of her voice held an edge that Olivia didn't like at all. Olivia spent the next few days deep in thought. $2 million was a staggering amount, but her grandmother's condition was strict: only real estate or education. The Spanish villa technically fit the requirements, but something about her husband's and mother-in-law's behavior put her on edge. Teresa seemed to sense her daughter-in-law's hesitation and ramped up the pressure. Every morning, she greeted Olivia with speeches about the healing Mediterranean climate, how rapidly European real estate was appreciating, and the urgent need to make a decision before the villa was scooped up by other buyers. Matthew supported his mother completely. He talked about colleagues who had relocated to Europe, the perks of remote work, and how prestigious it was to own property abroad. Olivia noticed that her husband had become jittery, constantly checking his phone and having hushed conversations with his mother. On Monday morning, Olivia decided to go to the bank to figure out the logistics of the inheritance. The estate attorney had said all the documents were ready, and the money could be wired to her account that week. At the bank, she was greeted by a friendly consultant. "Good news, Mrs. Vance. The probate is fully finalized. The funds will be deposited into your account by tomorrow afternoon." "Great. Are there any restrictions on transfers?" "Just the standard federal regulations. If you're buying real estate overseas, we'll need additional documentation." "Like what?" "A letter stating the purpose of the wire transfer, the purchase agreement, and proof of the seller's title." "Standard procedure." Olivia nodded. If her mother-in-law had genuinely found a legitimate villa, the paperwork should be in order. "And what if I change my mind and decide not to buy real estate abroad?" "Then you can buy something here in the US, or spend it on education, as outlined in the will." Leaving the bank, Olivia felt a sense of relief. She wasn't bound by any obligations yet. The decision was still hers. But she drove home with a heavy heart. She had to announce her decision to the family. Teresa met her right at the door. "Well, Livy, did you go to the bank? When is the money coming?" "Tomorrow." "Wonderful. That means the day after tomorrow, we can submit the paperwork for the villa." Olivia walked into the living room, where Matthew was watching TV. "Matt, I need to speak with both of you." Her husband muted the TV. Her mother-in-law settled into an armchair, looking like someone ready to hear excellent news. "I've made a decision regarding the inheritance," Olivia said. "And?" Teresa asked impatiently. "I am going to buy a condo right here in Chicago. A large, comfortable one for our family." Silence filled the room. Her mother-in-law's face fell. Matthew scowled. "Liv, we agreed on Spain," her husband said. "We didn't agree on anything. You made a proposal. I thought about it, and I decided otherwise." Teresa stood up from her chair. "Livy, you don't understand. Spanish real estate is an investment. A Chicago apartment is just throwing money away. But we'll actually live in it every day. And what about my health? The doctor said I absolutely need a warm climate. Teresa, you can go to resorts, or we can look into moving you to Florida or Arizona. The climate is warm there too." Her mother-in-law went pale. "Are you suggesting I move away from my son's home?" "I'm suggesting you think about what you actually need for your health." Matthew stood up and walked over to the window. "Olivia, I thought you'd understand. Mom is really sick. Then let her see doctors here and get proper treatment. The medical care here is among the best in the world. You don't need to move to Spain to get treatment." Teresa suddenly burst into tears. "I dreamed my whole life of seeing the ocean, of living in a beautiful place. And now, when the opportunity finally arrives, I'm being denied." Olivia felt a pang of pity, but she held her ground. "Teresa, this is a massive amount of money. I can't spend it on something we don't actually need." "You don't need my health? You don't need it? We don't need to buy a $2 million villa to take care of your health." Her mother-in-law wiped away her tears and looked at her son. "Vincent, do you hear this? Your wife thinks your mother's health isn't worth the money." "Mom, don't cry. We'll figure something out." Olivia was taken aback. Why did her mother-in-law call her husband Vincent? His name was Matthew. "Excuse me, I didn't quite catch that. What did you just call him?" Teresa froze. Matthew flushed red. "I said my son. Her mother-in-law corrected herself quickly. No, you said, Vincent. You're hearing things, Liv, Matthew said sharply. But Olivia remembered clearly. Her mother-in-law had called him Vincent. Why? Fine. Maybe I misheard. Regardless, my decision is final. We are buying a place in Chicago. Teresa stood up and headed for the door. We'll see about final. There was a threat in her voice that put Olivia on high alert. That evening, her husband was silent and brooding. He went to bed early, claiming he was exhausted. Olivia stayed in the kitchen, drinking tea and mulling over what had happened. Something in her family's behavior was deeply unsettling. They were far too fixated on that specific Spanish villa. The next day, the funds actually hit her account. Olivia received a mobile alert, an incoming wire of $2 million. $2 million in her personal account. The amount felt surreal. She decided to start looking for apartments in Chicago. She went on Zillow, studying the listings. For that kind of money, she could buy an incredible penthouse downtown or a massive house in the suburbs. Matthew left for work early. Her mother-in-law also went out to run errands. Olivia was home alone and decided to use the quiet time to think things through. Around noon, the landline rang. Hello? Good afternoon. This is Trust Capital Bank. Am I speaking with Matthew Vance? No, this is his wife. We need to reach Mr. Vance regarding his loan agreement. Her heart dropped. What loan agreement? What happened? Today is the final day to make a payment on the loan. The outstanding amount due is $200,000. Olivia felt the ground slip out from under her. Excuse me, what loan are you talking about? A home equity line of credit secured by real estate, finalized a month ago, the property at. The bank employee read off their home address. That's our condo. Then please inform your husband that he must deposit the $200,000 by 6 p.m. today, or we will begin foreclosure proceedings. Olivia hung up the phone with trembling hands. Matthew had taken out a loan against their condo, a $200,000 HELOC, a month ago before he even knew about the inheritance. She grabbed her cell phone and dialed her husband's number. Matt, the bank just called me about the loan. What loan? The $200,000 against our condo. A heavy pause hung on the line. Liv. I can explain. Explain. Now. Not over the phone. We'll talk tonight. No, now. Why did you leverage our apartment? It's temporary. I'll pay it all back. What did you spend $200,000 on? Liv, believe me, it was necessary. Matt, the money has to be deposited by 6 p.m. tonight. I know. It will all be sorted out. How will it be sorted out? You have $2 million now. $200,000 is a drop in the bucket. Olivia felt a blazing fury ignite in her chest. So, you were banking on my inheritance. Not banking on it. Hoping. When I took out the loan, you didn't even know about the inheritance. Liv, I'm at work right now. Let's talk at home. No. Tell me right now. What did you spend the money on? On the deposit for the villa. Olivia's world tilted on its axis. What deposit? What villa? The one in Spain. Mom said we had to put the deposit down urgently, or they'd sell it to someone else. You put down a deposit on a villa without asking me? I thought you'd agree. And if I didn't, I thought you'd understand. Olivia hung up the phone. Her hands were shaking with rage and shock. Matthew had secretly taken out a loan, used their condo as collateral, and wired a deposit for a villa in Spain. And he did all this before she had even agreed to buy it. She sat on the sofa, trying to calm her racing heart. She needed to figure this out. If a deposit was made, there had to be paperwork, contracts. Olivia started tearing through the apartment. In her husband's desk drawer, she found a manila folder. A preliminary purchase agreement for a villa in Costa del Sol. Purchase price, $1,980,000. Deposit, $200,000. Buyer's signature. Olivia stared at the signature and couldn't believe her eyes. The document hadn't been signed by Matthew. It had been signed by Teresa. Her mother-in-law had signed as the representative for the Vance family. The contract stated that the buyers were obligated to pay the remaining balance within 1 month of the deposit date. The deposit was made 3 weeks ago. That meant they only had 1 week left. Olivia kept digging through the documents. There were several other papers in the folder: a household income statement, passport copies, and a consent form for purchasing foreign real estate. And all the documents were signed by Teresa on behalf of the family. At the bottom of the folder lay one more document that made Olivia's blood run cold: a power of attorney, granting the right to manage marital assets, issued by Matthew in Teresa's name. Because his name was the only one on the original deed to their condo, he had legally granted his mother the power to execute transactions on his behalf. Olivia grabbed her phone and called her husband again. "Matt, did you give your mother power of attorney over our assets?" "Liv, not now. Answer me. Did you or didn't you?" "I did, but only to finalize the paperwork for the villa. She signed the contract on our behalf." "So, what?" "We're family. Matt, I do not agree to this contract. Then we lose the deposit. $200,000 down the drain. And what are we supposed to do? If we back out of the purchase, the deposit is non-refundable." Olivia realized it had been a trap from the very beginning. Put down a deposit, present the family with a done deal, and force her to pay the rest so they wouldn't lose the money already spent. "Matt, you're a con artist. Liv, don't say stupid things. You deceived me. You secretly took out a loan and let your mother sign a contract for $2 million. I wanted to surprise you. A surprise for $2 million. Liv, calm down. I'll come home, and we'll discuss everything." Olivia hung up and sat down to process the nightmare. Matthew leveraged their condo, took out a $200,000 HELOC, and put down a deposit on a villa in Spain. Teresa signed the contract on behalf of the family using a POA. Now they were legally obligated to pay nearly $1.8 million within a week, or they would lose the deposit and still owe the bank $200,000. A perfect trap. They had left her no choice. She pulled out her phone and called her friend Katie. "Katie, I am in massive trouble." "What happened?" "My husband secretly took out a loan against our condo and put down a deposit for a villa in Spain." "What?" "A $200,000 deposit. If I don't pay the rest, we lose the money." "Liv, that is straight up fraud." "I know, but what can I do? The condo has a lien on it. The contract is signed. Go to the police." "With what?" "In this state, since his name was the only one on the original deed, he technically had the right to take out the HELOC. His mother acted via a power of attorney, but you didn't give consent. Legally, my signature wasn't required for him to encumber his own property." Olivia knew that, strictly legally speaking, Matthew and Teresa hadn't broken the law. The loan was processed legally. The POA was valid. The contract was signed. But morally, it was pure extortion. That evening, Matthew came home carrying a bouquet of flowers and wearing a deeply guilty expression. "Liv, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to do what was best." "What was best?" "You put a lien on our home. I'll pay off the loan. With what money?" "With your inheritance." "And what if I didn't get an inheritance?" Matthew hesitated. "But you did." Teresa emerged from her room looking triumphant. "Livy, don't be upset. It's all for the best." "For the best? You signed a contract without my consent. I had a power of attorney from Matthew. I had every legal right." "Legally, yes. Morally, no. Morals are about helping a sick person, not being greedy." Olivia stared at her mother-in-law intently. "Teresa, are you actually sick? What kind of question is that? Where are your medical records? Your test results?" Her mother-in-law faltered. "Why do you need my lab work? If you expect me to spend $2 million on your treatment, I want to see the diagnosis. I have many ailments. My heart, my joints, my blood pressure. Show me the doctor's notes." "Are you saying you don't believe me?" "After today, I don't believe anyone." Teresa pursed her lips defensively. "See, Matthew, your wife doesn't trust you, and she calls your mother a liar. What kind of family is this?" Olivia stood up and headed for the bedroom. "I'll think about it until tomorrow." But there wasn't much to think about. The trap had snapped shut. Either she paid off the villa, or the family lost the $200,000 deposit and remained saddled with debt. That night, Olivia lay awake, turning the situation over in her mind. Matthew and his mother had outplayed her from the start. Overhearing the conversation, quickly finding a villa perfectly matching the inheritance amount, the power of attorney, the loan, the deposit, it was all orchestrated. The next morning, she decided to visit her estate attorney for a consultation. Maybe the conditions of the will offered a loophole. The attorney listened to her carefully. "Mrs. Vance, technically, purchasing real estate in Spain does not violate the terms of the will, but I don't want this villa. Unfortunately, if the contract was signed under a valid power of attorney, it is legally binding. And what happens if I refuse to pay the balance? You will forfeit the deposit. Plus, the debt from the loan remains. What if I revoke the power of attorney? Too late. The transaction has already been executed." Olivia realized she was legally backed into a corner. Is there any way to contest the transaction? Only if you can prove you acted under duress or fraud. How do I prove that? Witnesses. Audio recordings. Documentary evidence. Olivia returned home with a heavy heart. She needed proof of coercion and fraud. But where would she get it? Only her mother-in-law was home. Matthew was at work. "Well, Livy, have you decided?" Teresa asked. "Still thinking. There's nothing to think about. Either you pay, or we lose 200,000. And what if I find a way to void the contract?" Her mother-in-law laughed. "You won't. We thought of everything." Olivia went on high alert. "We thought of everything." That meant it truly was a conspiracy. Who is we? Matthew and me, of course. Did you really think we didn't know you'd put up a fight? So you planned to deceive me from the beginning? Not deceive. Persuade. Sometimes, people need to be presented with a done deal. Olivia felt a white-hot fury boiling inside her, but she suppressed it. I see. She went into her bedroom and thought. Her mother-in-law had practically confessed to a conspiracy, but how could she record it, prove it? Suddenly, she had an idea. Every smartphone has a voice recorder. She could try to record a conversation where Teresa or Matthew admitted to the fraud, but how could she get them to speak openly? She remembered that Matthew was going out with a friend that evening, leaving her alone with his mother. Maybe she could bait her into a confession. That evening, Matthew left as planned. Olivia turned on her phone's voice memo app, slipped it into her pocket, and walked out to the kitchen, where Teresa was sipping tea. "Teresa, I want to have an honest conversation with you." "About what?" "About the villa." "Are you truly ill, or is this just a scheme to get the money?" Her mother-in-law set her cup down. "What difference does it make? The money has to be spent on real estate anyway. The difference is that I don't want to buy a villa for your vacations." "Vacations? I worked my whole life. I deserve a nice retirement on someone else's dime, on the family's dime. You're married to my son, which makes us family. Family doesn't deceive each other." Teresa stood up and walked to the window. "You know what, honey? Deceit is when you hide $2 million from your husband. We are simply protecting the family's interests." "How?" "Because if that money stayed in your control, you would only spend it on yourself." "What makes you think that?" "Because you're greedy. You got this massive inheritance and immediately decided to keep it all for yourself. I wanted to buy an apartment for our family to live in." "Liar. You wanted to spend it on yourself." Olivia realized her mother-in-law wasn't going to confess to fraud. Instead, she was shifting the blame onto her. "Fine, let's say that's true. Then why the whole performance about being sick?" "What performance? I really do feel poorly." "Show me notes from your doctors." "I am not obligated to show you anything." "Then I am not paying for the villa." Teresa spun around sharply. "Oh, you will, because otherwise we all lose the money. That's your problem." "No, it's your problem, because Matthew will file for divorce, and he'll take half your inheritance." Olivia froze. There it was, the mother-in-law's true face, half the inheritance. "Did you think the inheritance was yours alone? You and Matthew are married. That means all money is marital property. Inheritance is not considered community property. It's separate. We'll see about that. A good lawyer can prove anything." Olivia's heart pounded. Her mother-in-law was threatening divorce and a lawsuit for the inheritance. "So you plan to take my money through a divorce settlement?" Teresa realized she had said too much. I'm not planning anything. I'm just warning you about the consequences. What consequences? That Matthew might not be able to tolerate such betrayal from his wife. What betrayal? You're the ones extorting me. You received a huge sum of money and refused to help a sick family member. That is a betrayal. Olivia stopped the recording. The conversation was captured, but Teresa hadn't said anything overtly criminal. Just threats and implications. She went to her bedroom and lay down fully clothed. She needed to come up with a plan. Tomorrow was the deadline to pay the balance for the villa. Either she caved, or it was war. That night, Olivia woke up to the sound of voices. Matthew had returned and was talking to his mother in the kitchen. She quietly crept to the door and listened. Did she agree? Matthew asked. Not yet. She's incredibly stubborn. What do we do if she refuses? Then you file for divorce, and we take half the money through the courts. Mom, is that even possible? Of course, it's enough to buy the villa and an apartment in Chicago. What if she figures it out and files first? We won't give her the time to think. Tomorrow you give her an ultimatum. Either she pays for the villa or it's a divorce. Mom, what if she actually agrees to the divorce? She won't. She loves you. And women in love always cave. Olivia had to physically restrain herself from storming into the kitchen. They were planning to blackmail her with a divorce, and if that failed, to sue her for half her inheritance. Are you sure a judge would give me half? Matthew continued. I have a lawyer friend. He says if we file the paperwork correctly, we can claim the inheritance as commingled marital assets. How do we prove that? For example, we prove that the money was intended for the family, not just for her personally. We'll find witnesses who will testify that her grandmother wanted to help the whole family. Olivia realized they were prepared to commit perjury. That was a serious crime. She quietly slipped back into the bedroom and opened her voice memo app. If they issued an ultimatum tomorrow, she had to record everything. In the morning, Matthew was acting jittery. He kept checking his phone, typing messages, but making no calls. Teresa walked around the apartment looking triumphant, as if preparing for a grand coronation. During breakfast, Matthew finally made his move. Liv, we need to talk. I'm listening. Today is the deadline. Either you pay the balance for the villa, or we lose the $200,000. I know. And? Olivia hesitated. The voice recorder was running in her robe pocket. And what happens if I refuse? Matthew and his mother exchanged a look. Then we'll have to reevaluate our relationship, her husband said. What does reevaluate mean? It means I'll file for divorce. For what? For betraying this family. You got millions of dollars and refused to help a sick person. Teresa nodded. Livy, think about it. What's more important, your greed or your family's happiness? And if I agree to the divorce? Matthew sneered. Then I'll take half your inheritance through the courts. By law, marital assets are split 50-50. An inheritance isn't a marital asset. We'll see about that. A good lawyer will prove the money was meant for the family. Olivia stood up from the table. I see. You're blackmailing me. We aren't blackmailing you. We're explaining the consequences, her mother-in-law said. And what if I file for divorce first? You won't have time, Matthew scoffed. My paperwork is already drawn up. Olivia felt a cold pit in her stomach. They really had planned everything in advance. Fine. I need time to think. You don't have time, Teresa said sharply. Decide now. What time does the wire transfer need to be initiated? By 6 p.m., Matthew answered. Fine. I will give you my answer by 6. Olivia retreated to her bedroom and stopped the recording. The audio was perfect, explicit threats of divorce and stealing her inheritance. Now she had proof of extortion, but what could she do with it? She could go to the police, but threatening a divorce wasn't a criminal offense. She could go to a lawyer, but time was running out. Olivia decided to take a different approach. If they were playing dirty, she could play dirty too. She pulled out her phone and called the real estate agency where Linda worked. Good morning. I'm calling regarding the villa in Spain that Teresa Vance reserved. How can I help you? I wanted to clarify some details about the transaction. My name is Olivia Vance. I'm her daughter-in-law. Ah, yes, Teresa mentioned you. Do you have questions about the paperwork? Yes. Tell me, is the title on the villa clean? Of course, everything has been vetted. The title is clear. And who is the seller? A company called Mediterranean Estates. They're a very reputable firm. Is it possible for me to see the property documents? Certainly, come on in. I'll show you everything. Olivia wrote down the agency's address and drove over. Linda greeted her warmly and pulled out a thick folder. Here you go. The property deed, title abstract, photos. Olivia carefully reviewed the papers. Everything looked solid and legitimate. Has Mediterranean Estates been around a long time? About 5 years. We've sold a lot of properties through them. Have you met with them personally? Of course. Their representative, Ian Vance, visits us regularly. Could I get his contact info? Linda handed her a business card with a phone number and email address. Is there some sort of problem? No, I just want to double-check everything. It's a lot of money. Olivia went back home and decided to call Mediterranean Estates. A man with a smooth voice answered. Ian Vance speaking. Good afternoon. I'm calling about the villa in Costa del Sol reserved by the Vance family. Yes, I remember. Beautiful villa, great price. Tell me, when was the title last verified? A month ago. Everything is perfectly in order. Could I get copies of those documents? Of course, I can email them to you. Excellent. Please send them over. Olivia gave him her email address and waited. Half an hour later, an email arrived with several attachments. She opened the documents: the property deed, title, abstract, cadastral registry. It was all in Spanish. Olivia didn't speak Spanish, but she could piece together the basics. The address, square footage, number of rooms, it all matched the description, but something felt off. The documents looked too pristine, as if they had just been generated, and the signatures on the different pages looked suspiciously identical. Olivia decided to have a professional look at them. She called Maria, a friend who worked at a translation agency and was fluent in Spanish. Maria, I need a huge favor. Can you review some Spanish real estate documents for me? Sure, send them over. Olivia emailed the scans. An hour later, Maria called back. Liv, where did you get these documents? From a real estate agency. What's wrong? What's wrong is that they are complete forgeries. Olivia's heart leaped. What do you mean, forgeries? The notary stamps are wrong. The document ID numbers don't match the Spanish registry format. The signatures are blatant fakes, meaning this villa doesn't exist. The villa might exist, but these documents are 100% fake. Olivia felt the world spin. Teresa had put down a $200,000 deposit on a non-existent villa using forged documents. Maria, is this a criminal offense? Of course. It's massive wire fraud. Thank you. You've been a huge help. Olivia hung up the phone and thought hard. Now, she had proof of felony fraud. Forged documents, a fake transaction, a phantom villa. It was more than enough to go to the police. But first, she needed to check one more thing. She remembered how Matthew had been constantly checking his phone yesterday, typing away. Was it possible he was monitoring her communications? She meticulously inspected her smartphone. Under the installed apps list, she found a program she hadn't installed herself, System Data. A strange name for a system update. Olivia Googled it. It turned out System Data was a well-known spyware app that recorded calls, texts, and location and sent them to a remote device. Matthew really had been spying on her. All her calls with her friend, the attorney, the translator, everything had been recorded and sent to her husband. The entire picture was now perfectly clear. Matthew had wiretapped her phone using a spy app, found out the exact amount of the inheritance, and relayed the info to his mother. Teresa had acquired fake documents for a non-existent villa, priced precisely to match the inheritance. Matthew had taken out a loan against their condo and transferred the deposit for a fraudulent transaction, and now they were blackmailing her, demanding she pay the rest for a phantom property. It was a flawless scam, but they had one fatal flaw. They didn't know that Olivia had figured it all out. She had the audio recording of their extortion, proof of the forged documents, and evidence of the illegal wiretap. It was enough to bury them. But Olivia decided to give them one last chance. Maybe they would come to their senses and back down. She walked out to the kitchen, where Matthew and his mother were sitting. "I've made my decision," Olivia announced. "And?" Teresa asked impatiently. "I am not paying the balance for the villa." Matthew went pale. "Liv, do you understand what that means?" "I understand. You lose the $200,000 deposit, and I file for divorce." "Then file." Her mother-in-law jumped up. "Girl, are you out of your mind? You'll lose your husband and half your money. Maybe, and maybe not." "What do you mean, maybe not?" Olivia looked at them calmly. "I mean that I have some evidence of your little scam." Both their faces changed. "What scam?" Matthew asked cautiously. "For instance, recordings of your conversations plotting to steal my money through a divorce settlement." "You recorded us?" "I did. And not just your conversations." Olivia took out her phone and showed them the spyware app. "I also found this program you installed to wiretap my phone." Matthew tried to deny it. "I didn't install any programs." "Don't lie. The app logs when it was installed. Exactly 1 month ago, the day you first heard about the inheritance." Teresa nervously licked her lips. "And what else?" "And then I checked the documents for your villa. It turns out they're forged." Silence engulfed the kitchen. Matthew and his mother exchanged a panicked look. "What do you mean, forged?" Teresa whispered. "It means the villa doesn't exist. It means you wired a $200,000 deposit for a fake property. It means this is felony wire fraud." Matthew slumped into his chair. "Mom, you said you verified everything." "I did. Linda said everything was in order." "Linda might not have known about the forgery," Olivia said, "but the documents are absolutely fake. I have a certified translator's report." Her mother-in-law clutched her chest. "What do we do now? We lost $200,000. You didn't just lose it," Olivia continued evenly. "You'll also face criminal charges for fraud." "What charges? We're the victims here. You are co-conspirators in a fraudulent scheme. You wired a deposit, signed a contract, and tried to extort me for the balance. That makes you accomplices." Matthew tried to speak, but Olivia cut him off. "And you, Matt, are facing charges for illegal wiretapping. Installing spyware without consent is a federal crime." "Liv, we can fix this," her mother-in-law began, her tone shifting to begging. "We'll forget about the villa. We'll go back to how things were." "We can't go back to how things were. Too much has come to light." "What do you want?" Matthew asked. Olivia thought about what she really wanted. To punish them, or just to be free of them. "I want you to leave me alone. I want you to drop any claims to my inheritance. And I want you to stop scheming behind my back." "Okay," agreed, Teresa said quickly. "And I want you to pay off the bank loan." "What loan?" "The $200,000 you wasted on a fake deposit. That is your responsibility, not mine." Matthew and his mother exchanged another look. "But we don't have that kind of money," her husband whispered. "Then you'll have to deal with the bank yourselves." "I am not covering your debts." Olivia stood up and headed for the door. "Think about it until tonight. Either you resolve all these problems voluntarily, or tomorrow morning I am going to the CPD to file charges for fraud and illegal wiretapping." She walked into the bedroom, leaving Matthew and her mother-in-law in a state of shock. She held all the cards now. That evening, Matthew and Teresa sat in the kitchen until the early hours of the morning, furiously debating the situation. Through the thin walls, Olivia could hear snippets of their argument. Her mother-in-law insisted they need to pressure Olivia even harder, while Matthew doubted if it would work. The next morning, the tension in the apartment was suffocating. Matthew paced around gloomily, skipping breakfast, furiously texting on his phone. Teresa pretended to do household chores, but Olivia could see she was hyper-alert to her every move. Around noon, the landline rang. Matthew snatched it up. "Yes, speaking." "I see. Okay. I'll be right there." He hung up and turned to his mother. "We need to go to the bank. There's a problem with the loan." Teresa froze. "What kind of problem?" "I don't know. They said to come in immediately with our documentation." Olivia watched them scramble from the kitchen. Matthew nervously shuffled through his papers. His mother fluttered around, shoving various documents into her purse. They were clearly terrified. "We'll be back soon," Matthew muttered as he walked past Olivia. "Okay." When they left, Olivia felt a wave of relief. Finally, she had some quiet time to plan her next moves. She had several options: go to the police with the fraud evidence, file for divorce first, or try to settle things amicably. But her thoughts were interrupted by the doorbell. It was Mrs. Higgins, their upstairs neighbor. "Olivia, dear, good afternoon. I'm sorry to bother you, but come in." Mrs. Higgins. The older woman perched on the edge of the sofa. "You know, I ran into your mother-in-law at the grocery store yesterday. She was bragging to the cashier about some villa you're buying in Spain." Olivia tensed. "What exactly did she say?" "She was boasting that she's moving to Europe soon. Said her daughter-in-law gave her $2 million for a villa." "I see. Olivia, honey, is it true? Did you really come into that kind of money?" Olivia hesitated. Mrs. Higgins was a decent woman, but notoriously nosy. Mrs. Higgins' family financial matters are best kept within the family. Of course. I was just surprised." Teresa went into such detail. She even named the price and when she plans to move in. Olivia realized that her mother-in-law hadn't just been bragging. She had been purposefully spreading information about the inheritance. Why? What else did she say? Just that the climate in Spain is better for her health, and that she'll be getting medical treatments there. And that you're such a kind daughter-in-law, not sparing any expense for your mother-in-law's health. I understand. Teresa had been building an alibi. If things went south, the neighbors would serve as witnesses that Olivia had supposedly agreed to buy the villa to treat her sick mother-in-law. "Thank you for letting me know, Mrs. Higgins." "Not a problem, dear. I just thought you'd want to know." When the neighbor left, Olivia was absolutely certain that Matthew and his mother were executing a meticulously planned scheme. They weren't just trying to get her money, they were actively preparing for a legal battle. An hour later, Matthew and Teresa returned. Their faces were stormy. "How did it go at the bank?" Olivia asked. "Fine," Matthew grunted, but it was painfully obvious things were not fine. Her mother-in-law stomped into her room without a word. Matthew sank into the armchair and stared blankly at the TV. Olivia decided it was time to cross the Rubicon. "Matt, we need to talk." "About what?" "About our future. About the inheritance. About your plans." Matthew turned off the TV and looked at his wife. "And what have you decided?" "I've decided that I will not give you the money for the villa." Matthew's face twisted. A dark, ugly rage flared in his eyes. "Final answer?" "Final." He stood up and began pacing the room. "Liv, do you understand what you're doing? You are destroying this family." "I'm not destroying anything. You and your mother are the ones plotting behind my back. We wanted what was best." "Best for who? For me or for her?" Matthew stopped and whipped around to face her. "For the family! My mom is sick. She needs treatment. Then let her get treatment here in Chicago. The treatment here isn't good enough." "That's a lie. And you know it." Matthew stepped closer. His posture was aggressive. "Liv, I'm asking you one last time. Are you giving us the money for the villa?" "No." Teresa emerged from her room. She had clearly been listening. "Son, you see? She refuses to help a sick woman." "I see, Mom." Olivia felt the atmosphere in the room become suffocatingly tense. "Teresa, show me the medical records confirming you need treatment in Spain. I don't have to show anything to a greedy bitch like you. Then they don't exist." "They exist. I just don't want to justify myself to you." Matthew clenched his fists. "Enough, Liv. You are mocking a sick woman. I am protecting my right to manage my own inheritance." "What inheritance? We're married. Everything we have is shared. An inheritance is separate property. We'll see about that." Olivia realized the argument had escalated into an open conflict. She knew she should stop, but something compelled her to keep going. "Matt, you wiretapped my phone." "What?" "You installed the System Data Spy app on my phone." Matthew looked panicked. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You know exactly what I'm talking about." His face went pale. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" "I wanted to make sure you weren't lying to us." "Lying about what?" About the size of the inheritance. Teresa nodded. Exactly. First you said it was a modest sum, and then it turns out to be 2 million. Because I didn't want you to immediately start making plans for my money. Matthew stepped right up to her, his face inches from hers. Your money? That is our family's money. No, it's my inheritance from my grandmother. Your grandmother wanted to help the whole family, not just you personally. How would you know what my grandmother wanted? Because that's how it works. No one leaves that kind of money to just one person. Olivia realized Matthew had completely lost control of himself. Matt, calm down. Let's discuss this rationally. No, I'm done discussing. You are going to the bank right now, and you are transferring the money. I'm not going. You will go. No. When Olivia told her husband that she wouldn't give the money she inherited from her grandmother for his mother's expensive Spanish villa, he snapped. He flew into a blind, terrifying rage and began destroying the apartment. First, he swept all the dishes off the dining table, shattering them against the wall. Then he kicked over the chairs, started hurling books, and smashed everything he could get his hands on. Teresa was screaming, trying to stop him, but Matthew was completely unhinged. Then he lunged at his wife, grabbed her tightly by the neck, and barked, "Transfer the 2 million to my mom immediately, or I'll throw you out the window." Olivia panicked, gasping for air. She managed to knee him in the groin, break his grip, and bolt out of the apartment, locking the front door from the outside with her spare key. She sprinted down the stairs to the courtyard, trembling from the shock. Matthew genuinely could have killed her. There was pure, unadulterated hatred in his eyes. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Chicago police, what is your emergency? I need help. My husband just assaulted me and is threatening to kill me. What is your address? Olivia gave the dispatcher her address. Officers are en route. Where are you right now? In the courtyard of my building. I'm terrified to go back up to the apartment. Stay outside, where there are other people. Officers will be there in less than 10 minutes. Olivia sat on a bench, trying to catch her breath. Her hands were shaking violently. Her throat ached where he had choked her. 15 minutes later, a CPD cruiser pulled into the courtyard. 2 uniformed officers approached her. Are you the one who called? Yes, that's me. Tell us what happened. Olivia gave a brief account of the events of the past few days, culminating in the violent outburst. The officers listened carefully, taking notes. Do you have proof of the threats? Yes. I have audio recordings on my phone. All right. Let's go up to the apartment. We need to document the damage and speak with the other parties. They rode the elevator up. The front door was unlocked now. Matthew opened it. He looked disheveled and panicked. His shirt was torn, his hair a mess. What happened here? He asked, feigning ignorance when he saw the police. We received a report of domestic battery and terroristic threats, the lead officer said. What threats? It's a misunderstanding. The officers stepped into the apartment and surveyed the wreckage. Smashed plates, overturned furniture, shattered glass, the scene spoke for itself. Who caused this damage? The officer asked. Matthew stayed silent. Teresa, standing in the hallway, also said nothing. Mrs. Vance, please play the audio recording of the threats. Olivia played the recording. Matthew's voice echoed clearly in the silent apartment. Transfer the 2 million to my mom immediately, or I'll throw you out the window. The officers exchanged a look. Mr. Vance, is that your voice? I was in a state of emotional distress. That does not justify assault and death threats. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. 2 men in sharp business suits holding briefcases stood in the hallway. Excuse me, we are looking for Matthew Vance. That's me, Matthew said. We are from Trust Capital Bank. We have some serious questions regarding your HELOC agreement. Matthew went ghostly pale. This is not a good time. It's a very necessary time. We reviewed the documentation you provided when applying for the line of credit. The income verification statements were forged. Teresa gasped and clutched her chest. Matthew, what are they saying? The W-2s and pay stubs you submitted indicate a monthly income of $15,000, the bank representative continued. But according to the IRS tax transcripts we pulled, your actual income is $5,000. That's a mistake, Matthew stammered. There is no mistake. We contacted your employer's HR department. The pay stubs were fabricated using a counterfeit company seal. The police officers perked up. So, Mr. Vance submitted forged documents to a federal bank? Exactly. This is grounds for immediate termination of the loan agreement, and we will be referring the matter to federal authorities for bank fraud. Matthew collapsed onto the intact sofa. I didn't forge the stubs. Someone in HR gave them to me. I don't remember her name. Teresa suddenly grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? The officer asked. To the grocery store. We need food. Stay right here. We have some questions for you, too. The mother-in-law stopped in her tracks. What questions? Regarding your real estate transactions. You signed a purchase agreement for a property in Spain. I did. So what? So, the seller of that property is a fictitious entity. Olivia was stunned. How did the police know about the Spanish villa? The officer explained, we ran a check on Mediterranean Estates while en route, based on the notes the dispatcher took from Mrs. Vance. There is no such company registered in Spain, and the individual operating under the name Ian Vance is using a stolen identity. Teresa tried to maintain her composure. Then we were scammed by con artists. Not exactly. According to our database, you knew the company was fake. Where would you get data like that? The officer pulled out his notepad. Teresa Vance, you have a prior felony conviction for real estate fraud. 5 years ago, you were involved in an identical wire fraud scheme. Matthew looked at his mother in absolute horror. Mom, what felony conviction? That was ages ago. It was a youthful mistake. You're 58 years old, the officer noted dryly. And you're still on probation. Olivia watched the scene unfold, as if it were a movie. It turned out her mother-in-law wasn't just a greedy woman. She was a convicted career fraudster. So it appears, the officer said slowly, that you orchestrated a scheme to defraud your daughter-in-law out of her inheritance. Teresa remained silent. And your son was aware of the plan. Matthew shook his head frantically. I didn't know anything. Mom said she found a great villa. But you consciously took out a fraudulent loan against your home. Yes, but I thought the real estate was real. The officer turned to Olivia. And when did you realize you were being scammed? Yesterday. I had the villa documents verified by a translator, and they turned out to be fake. Why didn't you come to the police immediately? I wanted to give them a chance to make it right. The bank representative interjected. Mr. Vance, given the submission of fraudulent documents, we are terminating your line of credit immediately. The entire $200,000 balance is due right now. But I don't have $200,000. That is your problem. If the funds are not returned within 7 days, we will begin foreclosure proceedings on the property. Matthew realized he was completely trapped. He had no money to repay the loan. The condo would be seized, and a federal indictment for bank fraud was imminent. Liv, please help me, he begged. You have the money. I will not help you. These are the consequences of your own actions. Teresa suddenly burst into tears. Livy, are you really going to let your own husband go to prison? My own husband shouldn't have defrauded me, assaulted me, and threatened to throw me out a window. The officer closed his notepad. Matthew Vance, you are under arrest for domestic battery and terroristic threats, pending further investigation into the bank fraud. Teresa Vance, you are also being detained for questioning regarding wire fraud. The officers handcuffed them both. Matthew and his mother looked terrified and utterly defeated. Liv, don't let them lock us up! Matthew yelled as he was being led out. We're family. Olivia said nothing. Family doesn't threaten to murder you. And family doesn't orchestrate elaborate fraud schemes to steal your inheritance. When everyone had left, the apartment was dead silent. Olivia stood alone amidst the wreckage her husband had caused. The shattered plates, the broken chairs, the scattered belongings. It was a perfect physical manifestation of her ruined marriage. She took out her phone and called her friend. Katie, it's over. Matt was arrested. What happened? It's a long story. In short, he and his mother tried to steal my inheritance. It escalated to assault and death threats. Liv, are you okay? Physically, yes. Emotionally, I'm exhausted. I just realized I was living with a man I didn't know at all. What are you going to do now? Get a divorce, buy a new apartment, start my life over. Did they get your money? No. It's safe in my account, and it's going to stay there. I'm going to spend it exactly how Grandma Clara intended. That evening, Olivia cleaned the apartment. She threw away the broken dishes, righted the furniture, and picked up the scattered clothes. The physical labor helped her process the trauma. The next day, she filed for divorce. Her attorney explained that given the circumstances, the process would be expedited. Your husband has absolutely no claim to your inheritance, the lawyer assured her, especially considering the pending felony charges. What about the HELOC on the condo? Those are his personal liabilities, as you were not a cosigner. The bank cannot pursue you for the debt. However, the property will be foreclosed on and sold if he cannot cover the balance. Olivia didn't care. She was already looking for a new place. With $2 million, she could buy an incredible penthouse in a great Chicago neighborhood. A week later, the lead detective called her. Mrs. Vance, we have an update on your case. What is it? During the investigation, we confirmed that the villa in Spain does not exist at all. It was a complete fabrication. The deposit funds were wired to offshore shell accounts controlled by associates of your mother-in-law. The entire setup was a massive fraud. Olivia wasn't surprised. She already knew Teresa was a career criminal. What about my husband? For the assault and the bank fraud, he's looking at significant federal prison time. He claims he was duped by his mother regarding the villa, but the bank fraud was all him. Your mother-in-law is facing a much longer sentence. Repeat offender, wire fraud, conspiracy. Olivia hung up the phone and sighed. Matthew wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was just a weak-willed coward easily manipulated by his con artist mother. But that didn't change the facts. Their marriage had been destroyed by his greed and betrayal. A month later, the divorce was finalized. Matthew was convicted and sentenced to federal prison. The bank foreclosed on the condo to recoup the fraudulent loan. Teresa received a lengthy sentence in federal lockup. Olivia bought a spacious, sunlit 4-bedroom penthouse in downtown Chicago. With the remaining funds, she enrolled in an executive MBA program, studied foreign languages, and acquired new professional certifications. When neighbors or friends occasionally asked if she regretted the divorce, Olivia would smile and say, "Honestly, I only regret the time I wasted." She learned the hard way that it is far better to be alone than to be tied to people who would gladly destroy you for a paycheck. Grandma Clara's money gave her more than just financial independence. It gave her a brutal lesson in reality. It revealed the true faces of the people closest to her and gave her the means to escape a toxic, dangerous relationship. A year later, Olivia's new life was fully established. She had a gorgeous penthouse, a thriving career, loyal friends, and, most importantly, absolute peace and confidence in her future. Matthew had tried to contact her a few times from prison, begging for forgiveness and asking to start over when he got out. But Olivia was immovable. Trust, once shattered by violence and deceit, can never be rebuilt. She often thought of Grandma Clara, who had pinched pennies her entire life to give her granddaughter a chance at a better future. Perhaps her grandmother had a sixth sense, knowing that the inheritance would serve not just as a financial windfall, but as a crucible that would test the strength of Olivia's marriage. Olivia passed that test. She didn't let herself be conned. She didn't succumb to extortion. And she didn't forgive a betrayal. Now, she was finally living life on her own terms, exactly the way she wanted, and never again the way someone else demanded.